Hi, I'm Ganesh Natarajan, Chairman of Honeywell Automation India, 5F World, and Lighthouse Communities. What does the world need today? If many of you remember, Tom Friedman wrote a wonderful book called The World is Flat. And his whole theme was that with trade barriers dropping, with economic partnerships and collaboration that we all saw for many, many years, almost a decade, the world was indeed becoming flat because barriers were dropping. Sadly, over the last few years, through economic problems that many countries faced, and of course the ravages of COVID, we've seen these barriers coming up again. Travel barriers, people barriers, economic barriers, social barriers. And I think what the world needs today is a return to economic growth, because people have to start doing better as individuals, families, societies, and countries. What the world needs definitely is a new resolve towards climate change, towards achieving many of those sustainable development goals that have been articulated by the United Nations. And what the world needs today, most probably relevant and more required than anything else, is to restore a sense of collaboration, camaraderie, and goodwill towards mankind. Why do I say this? In our own country, we are seeing divisive forces. Across the borders, I mean, we all know what happened with China when they almost took away territory from us. And while the military gave a magnificent response, the need for an economic response has precipitated many, many actions. We've all seen what is happening between the US and China. We've seen the trade barriers being erected with various parts of Europe. So I think we need a healing force. We need people to understand that this is our world. It's a world we're leaving for future generations. And whether it's writers, philosophers, thinkers, and of course, politicians, they have to work towards a better planet. I'm very hopeful that initiatives like what we are seeing here today, initiatives like what well-minded, well-thinking, and probably well-meaning organizations are trying to do will make it happen. But it needs the resolve and the effort of all of us to make sure that what the world needs today actually happens tomorrow. Look forward to making it happen. All the best to each one of you.
International Festival of Spiritual India 2022. Today is day 2 of the festival. We thank our title sponsor Celebrite Media for the wholehearted support. We now begin the first discussion of the day Mental Toughness in Tough Times. We welcome to the IFSI virtual studio our esteemed guests, Miss Nona Walia, Miss Mona Verma, and Miss Kenna Shree, who will lead the discussion. Nona Walia is a successful journalist and writer. She's the author of The Art of Mental Toughness Survival Lessons from the Pandemic. A motivational expert, she is passionate about helping people live their lives in the best possible way. A wellness warrior and a wellness blogger, Walia has done certified online course on science of well-being from the Yale University. She runs a wellness channel on YouTube. She has worked with the Times of India for 24 years as a senior assistant editor and is also the acclaimed writer of many articles for Thrive Global. Mona Verma is an author of works of fiction like A Bridge to Nowhere, God is a River, The White Shadow, Lost and Found in Banaras, and others. She had edited various science journals, self help books, biographies, and is a regular feature writer for online newspapers. A Paul Harris Fellow, she is engaged with Interplast, Germany, as a social volunteer. She owns a firm, Disha, whereby she is on board of various universities as an advisory expert and academic reviewer and is much sought as visiting faculty for creative writing, haiku, and limericks. Presently, she is serving as a PSI and PEP expert and soft skills proficient in educational institutions. Her outstanding contribution has led her to receive many prestigious awards. Kenna Shree is an author, poet, and storyteller. She also works as Deputy General Manager, Human Resources in NTPC Government of India. She has been writing for the Huffington Post, Times of India, Hindustan Times, Cox and Kings India, and other writing forums. She is winner of Times of India's Write India Season 1 and Season 3 short story campaigns and has contributed to 5 published anthologies. As a storyteller, her videos on YouTube have cumulatively crossed 7 million views. I request Ms. Kenashri to begin the discussion, please.
Oh, I didn't even notice that. Thank you so much. I'm so sorry. So, very warm welcome to all of you to the International Festival of Spiritual India. It's completely an honor to be here. Big shout out to Manjari and the entire team for setting this up, much needed in the times that we are in. So, whether you're dealing with a serious health problem, or you're faced with a financial crisis, or if it is grief, pain, a heart attack, or heartbreak, or even a prolonged pandemic like the times we are in, tough times are inevitable. And it's during these tough times that one's mental strength gets actually tested. So today I have with me on the panel two very strong voices. I can see Mona on the screen, and we are still waiting for Nona to join us. We'll be conversing to you on mental toughness during tough times. My panelists today happen to be people who hold the torch of mental strength, grit, and resilience. Mona, for sure, I know her as a person. She's a very good friend. And I know her as somebody who has stood her ground in difficult times and has also helped many other sail through storms. So let's say hello to them. Hi, Mona. How are you doing? How is it?
Hello, Kenna, and a very warm good morning to you. You've been always so generous in, making us look much better than what we are. Thank you. Thank you. And thank you, Renu Arya, for the wonderful introduction, as always, as every year.
Thank you so much, Mona. Absolutely a pleasure to be conversing with you once again. And I totally love the finally cute coincidence that we incidentally noticed last evening while we were chatting, that the three of us happened to be Kena, Mona, and Nona on the panel. So this is quite a cute coincidence with which we begin. So
Absolutely.
while we wait for Nona to join us, let's begin by understanding what is mental toughness. For instance, for some, it could be maybe 1 month without missing a workout, or going 1 week without eating processed food. I mean, yes, delivering work ahead of schedule for 2 days in a row, or maybe meditating every morning for a particular period. It could be just one extra rep on each set at the gym, or it could be spending 1 hour doing something very creative consistently over a period of time. I mean, it's different for different people. What is it for you, Mona?
Thank you for that wonderful question. To begin with a smile and laughter. Presently, mental toughness. It's really testing my grit because everybody downstairs. I'm in a hotel and they are having the cappuccinos and the croissants, and but I am having a better time. So they are being mentally tough when I'm speaking to such lovely ladies and enjoying this prestigious panel. And so am I missing the cappuccino downstairs. But okay, coming back to your question, toughness. To me is like it's like my weapon. It's like my weapon against the odds. It For me, it could be a personality trait, a trait of my character, which helps me determine in large part how I respond to a particular challenge. It is not about the challenge per se, it is how I respond to it, or how I perhaps even react to the stresses and the pressures that are prevalent, irrespective of what the circumstances are, how I respond to them. But I would say that mental toughness for me is not about being rough. It is not, toughness and roughness don't go hand in hand. It isn't being hard hearted or being very unfeeling. It is about being tough in the sense of not giving up and being confident that you can prevail no matter what the circumstances are. All of us know that 2020 and then even 2021 were not the most visionary years, but we did prevail even if the odds were hugely, hugely stacked against us. But toughness, where does toughness come in? The whole world was going through the same thing. So it was like a broad spectrum, test of toughness. But how do you project that you were tough? When you are tough, you stop feeling sorry for yourself. There's a fact that you need to accept. Life is not fair. It hasn't been. We were pushed to our limits. It was happening to everybody. We were not special. We were not spared. So why ruminate? Why chew the cud like a cow? Right? The fact is that you can't sit around feeling sorry for yourself. You can get mad that things aren't working out, but during these low moments, it can feel like no one can understand us, and other people are not going through the same crap that I'm going through. So when we were down on our luck, sitting around and feeling sorry for ourselves was not toughness, right? ये like we say, कहना वक्त का मिजाज है, पढ़ा नहीं जाता, कैसा भी आ सकता है, but you have to stop feeling sorry for yourself about it and learn to tide over it. That is toughness.
That's so very well put. I'm so glad that Nona is able to like join us. I can see her on the frame right now. Hey, hi, Nona. How are you doing? How has it been?
All well, all fine. It's fantastic to be on the panel and a subject close to my heart.
Also, for the fact that you've written an entire book on this subject.
Exactly, exactly. The pandemic was a time when everybody's mental toughness was challenged. And yesterday, in fact, at the opening session of the spiritual festival, somebody rightly said that we must invest in mental tranquility. There'll be sukha and there'll be dukkha. But if we can actually work on our mental toughness, our resilience, then we are in a better frame of mind to turn our suffering, our pain into thriving situations and do well in very trying and tough times.
Absolutely. In fact, we began our conversation dwelling upon the fact that what is mental toughness for you, and you have already put the context. So I'll move ahead. While it may seem that mental toughness is about motivation, like Mona also insisted, it may not be about looking rough and tough. It could be about not feeling sorry for yourself. It could be about the daily small habits that one inculcates that leads towards strength in general. Because motivation, some people say, is just a fickle. Willpower comes and goes. But for instance, as an example, if I have the motivation to lose weight, do I also have the resilience and the consistency to follow small habits which will help me lose weight? I mean, that would probably define mental toughness. Why don't you describe an instance, both of you, from your life where you felt that mental toughness is not about projecting oneself as strong, but it is actually about inculcating small habits or maybe little principles to stick to adhere to, that actually bring about a great difference in our lives? We could begin with Mona.
Okay, fine. Okay, I was waiting for Nona to respond, but okay, thank you. Okay, so you were talking about mental toughness, and I would deviate slightly before coming back to your answer. Can I, if you, with your permission? Can I?
Yes, please. Yes,
you know
please go ahead.
Thank you. As a woman, sometimes, I feel that when we portray that kind of toughness, right,
Mhm.
when we come out stronger than most of the people around us, professionally sometimes, and even personally, we come across as very intimidating. People feel, oh, she's very tough, and it has a very negative connotation sometimes, as like we are people who are like, completely out for ourselves. Whereas when men come across as tough, it's a very positive trait. It's a winner all the way. Like they say that when a man is successful, he is respected, he's admired by both the genders. When a woman is successful, she's despised by both. So I think the same sometimes also goes for toughness. Where when you talk about instance, I'm opening up here. So it's like I have been body shamed many times. I'm like 5 feet nothing. And many times there are people, I have no problems with it, but many people seem to have a problem with something like that. Now, how do you stay tough in the
Mhm.
face of this gaslighting, in the face of body shaming, or in the face of people trying to, project their horns effect at you? Now, when these things happen to many people, they happen to many women out there. Now, there is no step by step guide to a better me kind of a thing in terms of response. You have to
Mhm.
develop your own defense mechanism and see what works and what doesn't work. For me, the
Mhm.
step by step thing was, first of all, don't accept what the other person is saying. The second step, practical step, was don't even acknowledge
Mhm.
that they are saying this. And the most important thing, which has to do with just primarily you, don't believe it. Many people will try to drag you down to their level because sometimes they feel threatened that you're trying to become better than they are. But then
Mhm.
you know what you want, you know what you are. Don't let anybody fool you into thinking that you are failing at any level. That is mental toughness, right? So, how do, and when these kind of things happen to me, and because they happen time and again, right? I always ask myself one question: how did I deal with this previously? Right? It didn't kill me, right? I survived, right? I will survive it this time also. So,
Wow.
second thing is learning to say no to people who are holding you back, right?
Very important.
We are what we repeatedly do. So, make a habit of understanding yourself better, rendering yourself the respect that you deserve, and learning to say no. And it is very well in your hands, right?
Mhm.
Fear is about something that you can't control, and this is very well in your hands. So, control it, put an end to it while you can.
How lovely. What a beautiful, pertinent, important message. What about you,
Thank you.
Nona?
I feel that mental toughness for us is the new superpower. Now, very confessional mode. in March 2020, I lost my job because right at the beginning of the pandemic in a very ugly way. And I could have made that moment a watershed moment, but I chose not to. I chose to emerge stronger and tougher and not be overwhelmed by what was happening around me at that point. Emotionally, yes, it was a very difficult period, but my challenge, my personal challenge was that I'm not going to make this event a watershed moment of my life. In fact, there's so much to look ahead. So personally, I wanted to give strength to everybody who was going through a challenge and tough time at that period. And I think, 100 years from now, when we study the pandemic, I think one thing that is really going to emerge is how we became more resilient emotionally at this time. It's amazing. We all have that inner power to make our mental toughness and, make it a step towards our own greatness.
Correct. Absolutely. Uh, Also, the fact that many a times mental toughness is not directly proportional to intelligence. I mean, that could only be just a myth. For instance, competitors in national spelling bee competition, something as simple as that, tend to outperform their peers not because of their IQ or because of the smartness that they have, but because of great commitment and the long-term consistency in practice that they actually do. So, Mona, I would like you to respond to this. What do you think makes more impact? Intelligence or talent, or is there something else that leads to mental toughness?
Well, that's a lovely question, right? And Nona, you remind me of my grandmother who brought me up, now long gone. She used to say one thing, right? She couldn't speak in English, so she used to speak in Punjabi or Hindi,
Oh,
and she said, "पढ़ाई तो कोई भी कर लेता है, लेकिन अकल सबको नहीं आती." Right.
true,
So
true.
education and wisdom are two different things, right? When it comes to intelligence, intelligence is innate, it's a tool, right? Talent is something which is honed, right? It is an art. So these are two different things. For example, if I give you an example, you got a beautiful SUV, Kenna and Nona, and you are going up to Masuri, right? It is a four-wheel drive, and it is a very intelligent car because it knows, if it's taking a particular path, how the entire car system adapts itself to that path, how it changes its gears and whatnot. So it is a very intelligent car, right? Now, driving that particular car requires a particular talent for you to understand how this SUV works, what is the path that I'm taking, and how I'm going to shift the gears and whatnot. But what happens when you have an old cardboard flat Fiat from the years gone by? Now you need to drive this car uphill. When you drive this particular car uphill, this car is not a very intelligent car, but that is where your talent is going to get indexed, because you
Yes.
have to understand where am I going to stop it, इसमें कब पानी डालना है कि गाड़ी गर्म हो गई. Remember those old times in the 80s when our parents would take us, पानी डालते थे, गाड़ी को आराम देते थे, and stuff like that. So intelligence is different. It is a tool. It is innate. But to be able to use that intelligence requires a talent. To be able to hone a talent again requires intelligence, right? So intelligence, sorry. And but there are various situations. There are situations where you need to be intelligent, and there are situations where you need to show your talent. Intelligence is about thinking on your feet. Talent is basically drawing from the experience and honing your skills. But I believe to be intelligent is takes the first billing for me.
That was a brilliant analogy. And incidentally, most of us have that old flat Fiat, which needs a dhakka and not an SUV that we have to drive in a life. But Mona, I really wanted to ask the next question, which is aligned to this. Do you think intelligence take a front seat in pushing the Fiat ahead, the old Fiat ahead, or is it the talent? Or will it come only with practice?
Intelligence it will be. right? Not basically the talent. See, the car in its SUV in itself is an intelligent car. The Fiat is not an intelligent car
Mm.
for today's time, for that particular path that we are taking. So it will require your intelligence, it will require your push, and it is well within your control. We generally fear something which is not within our control. Remember how scared we feel when there's a turbulent flight? We are not in control. But when we are driving this car, because we are at the wheel, we don't fear it. We can
Yeah.
control it. And we can easily use our intelligence. Most of the people are not known to use their intelligence only when they fear the outcome. That is when they don't take the risk. So I think intelligence at any point will take the first billing. Talent is something which might come with degrees, which might come with whole lot of education. But I think when it comes to wisdom, there is no degree that can guarantee it.
How lovely. Very well put. Nona, let's come to your book. You have written The Art of Mental Toughness, which is sort of a manual on how to thrive and not just survive in uncertain times. It is about how you survive the lows by remaining relentlessly focused on positives of life. It talks about self-direction, self-strength, self-control. What inspired you to write the book? Did any incident happen, or you noticed, observed something that led you to pen this manual down?
So, in the pandemic, right in the beginning, when I was having conversations with everybody was mentally drained and emotionally uncertain. The future for the first time was out of our control. We are so used to being, in control of life and situations and how we deal with that uncertainty, especially at a long extended period, left everybody feeling emotionally drained. And even the toughest people I felt were feeling that challenge. And I was also speaking to a lot of psychiatrists and psychologists, friends of mine, and they themselves were feeling under the weather. I mean, they were, dealing with so much emotional upheaval in people's minds that imagine, I mean, dealing with hundreds of people and their problems. Everybody was feeling the stress of it all. And I said that if everybody could make a little manual for themselves how to cope and deal with mental pressure by being mentally tougher, by bouncing back, by having rituals for their own happiness. I think that will be fantastic. We would decrease the emotional burden on the nation, because the cost of psychological health and well-being were going up like crazy. And how many pills can people pop after a point?
Yes, true.
And nobody can help you. Nobody can help you. Nobody outside can help you make your own mental health better but you. So why not equip people with that warfare that they can help themselves?
So here's a shout out to everybody who's watching. Do grab Nona's book. It is actually a manual on developing mental toughness and sailing through tough times. It comes very handy and is very useful. It's available on Amazon. And also a shout out to everybody who's watching to please put your questions for the panelists in the chat box. My panelists will be very, very happy to take your questions. So anything that you would like to share, maybe share your feedback or your thoughts or anything pertaining to the topic, you're very welcome. Mona, coming to you. Recently, I read this research in one of the leading journals, which cited a study by Cleveland Clinic, and it said that the average person has 60,000 thoughts per day. And out of those, 95% of thoughts repeat each day. 80% of these repeated ideas are negative. Can you believe that? And that makes roughly 45,000 negative thoughts per day on an average to any average individual. Now, having said that, what is the role of positive thinking in mental toughness? How do we, cloud the negative thoughts and let the positivity emerge out of it? Your suggestions.
Yeah. Thank you, Kenna. And Nona, I really wanted to say something when you were talking about this book. I'm certainly picking up your book. But, when you were talking, I was reminded of something that Gulzar Saab once said, वक्त रहता नहीं कहीं टिक कर आदत भी आदत इसकी भी आदत इसकी भी आदमी सी है, right? So these times come and go, but books like yours really help us tide through them, right? So when it comes to positive and negative thinking, first of all, Kenna, I think we need to understand what is positive thinking. What really is positive thinking? I've seen that when others are going through bad times, we tell them, be strong, theek ho jayega, this too shall pass. And sometimes at the risk of sounding very, very negative, there is a storm brewing inside me when these things are said. And I say, how to be positive? You have to tell me how to be positive, how this will pass, कैसे ठीक हो जाएगा, कुछ तो बताइए ना, ठीक कैसे होगा, ठीक हो जाएगा is something like some fairy tale optimism. It is not change logic. ठीक हो जाएगा. I think that's a nice way of comforting somebody, but we need to understand what being positive is, what being negative is. When people tell us, always stay positive. There are many self-help gurus, right? They come and tell us, stay positive. I say, how can you deny that a problem exists? That makes me negative for some time. I accept it, I confess it to it, I profess it. If you stay in denial, you deny the problem, you also rob yourself of the chance to solve it first thing first. A mentally tough person will focus on what is going wrong. They will let them feel negative for some time before jumping the fence towards positivity by understanding what they can control. So supposedly I have hypothyroid, right? It makes me put on weight very, very quickly. Either I can ruminate about it, that I have a hypothyroid, I'm a physically fit person, I go exercise, I eat good food, I try to stay very healthy, but I can't really control the fact that yes, there is a gland in my body that doesn't function the way it should. But what can I control? That is the negative part. It makes me feel slightly negative when the blood test report comes. But then how do I get positive? By controlling the negative. How do I control the negative? By how much I can exercise, what can I eat, what I drink. I need to take my medication first thing in the morning. So even if my hypothyroid is something which is not in my control, everything related to it is in my control. So that is a positive part. So the key to it is, when it comes to being positive, is first by getting mentally tough and understand what you can control. We need to be aware of all the things that are affecting us in our life, but we can't dwell on the things that you can't change. So focus on the things that you can control, focus on the things that you can change, and it can actually nothing then that way can basically hold you back from becoming the best version of yourself. There's a small instance I would like to tell over here. There was a man who goes to a soothsayer, right? So he goes to the soothsayer and says, what do you think my future is going to be like? And like any person out there, he was like ardently praying that the soothsayer will say that, well, you're going to have a bright and a glorious future. So the soothsayer said, I've got this little ant, right? And I'm drawing two circles on the board. There's a white circle and there's a black circle. I will chant a prayer, and after that the ant will start moving towards one of the circles. So if it goes to the black circle, your future is dark and bleak. If it goes to the white circle, it is nice and bright and glorious. So he started chanting a prayer, and the ant started moving, and the ant started crawling toward the dark circle. The man was horrified. He quickly picked up the ant and put it, on the right path towards the white circle. So the soothsayer said, now you know. It doesn't need an ant to tell you whether the future is dark or bright. It was well within your control to pick it up and move it towards the right circle. So if that is well within your control, changing from negativity to positivity is well within your control. So positive thinking is about not just being positive, it is about thinking right and taking charge like this man did, not about some fantasy bound optimism. Chain it to reality.
Absolutely, I can't agree more. I mean, every day when I go from, say, work to home or home to work, there's this perpetual traffic jam that I have to face every day. And in the same traffic jam, on one side, I meet people who say, "Hey, this isn't fair. Why does it happen to me? I mean, why do I even stay in this place?" And at the same time, there would be another person, maybe beside my car, who would say, "This happens every day. So what? I mean, why not read? Why not listen to music? At least I'm getting some me time with myself." So it is not about fantastical world that you're, like you said. It could be about little things that we have actually do in our daily life. So, Mona, from where you last left, there's also something which I would want to, in fact, speak to Nona about. You have written a lot on monotasking versus multitasking. Now, recently, I also read a research in which it said that it takes about 23 minutes, 15 seconds to return to an original task after a small distraction or interruption. Earl Miller, the neuroscientist from MIT, he also puts it across that our brains are not wired to multitask well. And sometimes it's just switching from one task to another, which leads to devastation. So, what is your take on it? Are you a multitasker or are you a monotasker, and why?
Tina, before the pandemic hit and we were pursuing normal work lives, the work geniuses who were being celebrated were the great multitaskers.
Yes,
But the
yes.
pause, yeah, oh, so and so can do so much, how brilliant. So we celebrated those people. We
Hmm.
actually constructed the tasking heroes. But the pause of the pandemic made everybody slow down. Everybody realized that, mindfully doing one thing leads to lesser stress in our lives. And I think monotasking is a beautiful thing where you focus on only one thing at a time and do it extremely well rather
Hmm.
than doing 20 things in one jiffy and saying that, oh, I've mastered the art of multitasking.
Multitasking certainly doesn't work for me. I have also gone through a couple of psychometric tests regarding multitasking, which prove that I am a big failure when it comes to multitasking. If you
Very
ask me to,
interesting.
yes, if you ask me to multitask, I'll end up giving you not so quality products, which is against my perfectionist attitude. So I have left it aside completely. What about you, Mona? Do you like to multitask or monotask? What works for you? Because it is obviously different for different people.
Yes, Kenna, we are forced to multitask. Not that, that is something we are inclined towards or we have a leaning towards it. But yes, as a writer, as a corporate trainer, as a mother, as a lady of the house, we are forced to multitask at times. But as Nona also put it very well that there is something that I notice when I'm multitasking. Right. We say that, it took me 15 minutes to complete both the things. But had I done them one at a time, maybe I would have taken
Yes.
just 12 minutes because I am not counting the 3 minutes that I'm taking to switch between the tasks and also losing the focus from task A towards a task B. So, multitasking, if something that requires 100% of your concentration, certainly does not work. You look very busy, but either you are busy or you are effective. These are two different things.
Absolutely. I've also tried using Pomodoro technique and it has worked wonders for me. So I put on the
Yeah.
timer for 20 minutes and try to focus there and complete one task at a time before I switch on to another. And it has worked for me a lot. Coming back to
You have
you,
to
Nona.
respect your Pomodoros there. 5 minutes, you have to respect them.
Yes.
When it comes to Pomodoros. Sorry.
Yeah. Mona coming back, Nona coming back. Oh my God, it's just Kena, Nona, and Mona. I tell you
I
this.
know.
All
I
right.
know.
I'm
I
coming to
know.
you now. So apparently we touch our phones 2617 times a day. Can you believe it? I mean, just for Gmails or maybe sending text messages, replying to WhatsApp, scrolling through social media, or even if it is about scrolling, photos, clicking photos, we actually give attention to our phone more than 2000 times in a day. That is
Mhm.
huge consumption of our time. So asking you, Mona, and then probably, Mona, you can also put your sense here. Do you think uh, internet consumption or engaging oneself in social media leads to building or ruining mental toughness?
Totally ruining it, Kenna. For me, at least, as it is, you couldn't have found the wrongest person to ask this question. I'm very, very bad with social media. And I hope Dipankar Mukherjee is not privy to this conversation, because every day he literally bells and boots me into posting more things about my profession on social media, and all. Generally, I fail to. You know, I don't know. Somehow, at a very private level, I'm not very open to social media. For one, it gives me FOMO, right? Because life is brighter and better for other people, except for me. And when somebody projects like they are the next best thing on this planet after the invention of fire and wheel, it is not real, because this particular person who is projecting themselves that way in this very unreal some candy floss world, this person can very well control what they are projecting, right? Nobody
Mm,
is going to show their vulnerability, nobody is going
mm,
to project their negatives, right?
mm,
Unless and until it is something which is like a faux pas, something which is very humorous, right? Now, I feel that is not being mentally tough, because you are
mm,
not acknowledging what your areas to work on are, right?
mm,
It is, well,
mm,
you tend to lie more, you tend to
mm,
project a force side of yours, right, which is
mm,
not real. Secondly, how it really makes you weak, mentally weak, is, see, what happens is, if somebody's troubling you, Kenna, so somebody starts trolling you, or somebody starts trolling Nona, what do? What do we do? We block them. We block them. But we have robbed ourselves of the chance to deal with the real problem. We haven't just blocked the person, we have also blocked the problem. And that is not making you tough. In fact, it can be as unreal as it can get. And then there is something about Dunbar numbers, right? Your brain actually cannot register the thousands of people who are following us, or people we were friends with. After all, it is just five intimate relationships, 15 friends, and barely about 100 and 150 people that we can recognize and
mm.
speak with. Sometimes I've gone to literature festivals and people have come to me and said, "Hi, I like your posts and you like mine. I'm your friend on Facebook." And I'm truly ashamed of myself, because I can't put the name to the face. That is being weak, not being able to address a problem and blocking it. This is what social media is doing to us at various levels. I'm not really much of a social media person, but I so admire when people are putting out relevant work and relevant videos on social media. I look at you, Kenna, and I keep following your videos. When people have something sensible to say, I think social media is an ammunition for them, and they must use it for a full on blast. But if you have nothing to say, please block me.
No, we won't, because at the end of the day, we find the mental health champions community out there in the social media, which may not be instantly available to us in our near surrounding.
Hmm.
So I'm not going to block you. Nobody is ever going to block you, because we seek your support and guidance. And even though if it is available on social media, what about you, Nona? Nona, do you think that social media also gives you an opportunity to engage with communities which are maybe champions of mental health, or which give support to each other? Self-help groups are there.
Increasingly we are going to lead more digital and virtual lives. And I remember I was in class 10th when I wrote a handwritten letter to Kushwant Singh, and he actually replied back. It came through the postman. It was beautiful. Now, today, in today's age, as a writer, as a journalist, as an author, I think it's a great platform to interact and have conversations and meet diverse kinds of people and know their thoughts, engage in new ideas, which are going to be the future of tomorrow. I think social media gives this very fantastic platform, but if you use it mindfully.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. So we are moving ahead towards the wrap of the session in another 15 minutes or 10 minutes around. And I have so many questions to ask you all, really. I request you to give us, quick two-liners or maybe a one-liner if it is possible in the forthcoming questions. Nona, I'll begin with you. Podcaster Chris Ducker, he coined this word "youpreneur" to describe the rise of personal brand entrepreneurs. And you have also written a lot about it. So, youpreneuring, isn't this against the hustle culture? I mean, there is this in thing today of youpreneuring yourself, projecting your personal brand image. But is it not hustle culture?
Well, if you're authentic, it is not hustle culture. If you're not really aggressively pursuing your personal branding, it is not hustle culture. It's, youpreneurs basically build their personal brand on authenticity, on being real, on being able to control their own narrative rather than, networking mindlessly.
Okay, that way. Taken. Well taken. A question to both of you. How have creative pursuits like writing or hobbies or haiku for that matter helped you to maintain your mental strength? Any of you? Either. Una, Nuna, anyone.
For me personally, I found great tranquility and healing in gardening, in going for my walks, in writing poetry, in listening to really nice healing music. I think that has been a huge, huge help.
What about you, Mona?
Well, I think I'm in my element when I'm reading, when I'm writing, whether it is reading and writing as in terms of the books that I have published, and also reading and writing for the modules that I'm creating for workshops. It's, when it comes to my books, I think it's very cathartic. It will wail to what lies inside. On a humorous note, if I don't like you, I kill you in my book. I have a name. I have a character by your name, and I go through it, right? So we have this very strange kind and a very fearful kind of a freedom as writers. But jokes apart, but even when it comes to creating modules, so I'm reading up on something or I am writing something for my PowerPoints, we read more to write better. And when we read more, we understand better. We also understand our responses, our reactions to various situations in life. Something that we feel that this is what I always do. But when you read about something and when you start writing about it, there's a long journey that you traverse between reading about it and writing about it, because you also understand your own reasons for doing certain things. Where am I going wrong? Do I need to change? And what do I need to change? Can I change it? And how will I benefit from it? So this is what comes from reading and also from writing. And also there is something at a very personal level, when I tell people that I'm into corporate trainings and faculty training programs, and then I'm also a parallel processor. I also write. I've published about 16 works now. So people disturb me lesser than they disturb other friends. So I'm able to, I'm not filling my calendar with other people's priorities. So life as a parallel processor has helped me from renting myself out to some other people's priorities. Because if you do that, if you rent yourself out to other people's whims, it's a very expensive deal and a bad one at that. So I have learned to say no. From this particular profession, I have learned to say no to so many things that don't benefit me emotionally, professionally, and also at a very human level. So they know कि इसको ये बात नहीं करना है, इसको इस time नहीं disturb करना है. This, it became very uncomfortable for both me and my friends at one point. But then they also came to realize, and I also came to realize, that how much of saying no can help me, and I will have no problem saying it to people when it's necessary. So these two professions put together have helped me at various levels, understanding myself better and wasting my time slightly less.
What about you, Kena? What works for you?
For me, certainly it is reading. I take a lot of solace in books, and I draw a lot of energy from books as well. So you would, it wouldn't be surprising for you to find me immersed in a book, and also find me that I am very anxious and restless at the same time. Or it could be in writing, because like Mona said, we tend to, you know, take the liberty of ranting everything in our through our writing, and especially in journals, especially in daily journaling, which nobody will ever get to read, which nobody will ever get to see. The journal will never see the light of the day. So it is my own little space where I put my everything over there. So yes, it works for me a lot. Now, with this, I wanted to know about TBRs, if any. Do you have any book recommendations on the topic, or any in general?
I really got inspired by this book, Calm Within the Storm by Dr. Robin, where she
Okay.
says how to build everyday resiliency and, little things that we can do that help us bounce back if you're feeling low, daily steps, how to feed your brain health. It's very,
Hmm.
very important to feed our brain with the right thoughts, with the right food, because even
Hmm.
what we eat, what we think impacts our.
Hmm. 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 What about you, Mona?
Um, mm, I think it was the book called Room by Emma Donnock. It's a story about Jack and his mother who were confined to a room for 7 years in a single room. So it is a book on resilience and strength and what people go through, their crests and the troughs. Then there's another book called Chatter, The Voice in Our Head. And this
Hmm.
book is by uh, Ethan Cross, right? I'm very bad with names. I'm very sorry, but I think at Indian front there are books by Munshi Premchand. There are books by Isma Chugtai, and of course my favorite is Tagore's Choker Bali, the character of Binodini,
Hmm.
resilience
Hmm.
and
Hmm. Hmm.
strength and what have you. I think these are the
Yeah.
books for me.
Absolutely, there's no dearth. In fact, it's an entire khazana, that entire treasure of good books, to the go-to books. Of late, I think I came across this book by, which is an book on illustrations by Charlie McKinsey. If you happen to follow him on Instagram as well, so there's this book, The Boy, the Mole, the Fox, and the Horse, which in which he describes very, very real life situations beautifully through the story of the horse, the boy, the mole, and it's so beautifully and illustratively done. It's my go-to book for sure. Uh, One thing that I also wanted to ask you is, we are actually running out of time, hardly have 2 minutes in hand, but do you feel vulnerable sometimes, and what do you do with yourself? How do you gather yourself up and move ahead?
Can
I think
Nona?
vulnerability is very beautiful. Yeah, vulnerability is very beautiful, and we must nurture our vulnerability as creative people, because you see, that softness, that tenderness, that hurt makes us what we are today.
Hmm. Mona?
Well, in one line, I would say I always tell myself one thing, and I tell myself that Waqt, the time, is talking to me, and Waqt is telling me, देख बेटा बंदा तो तू ठीक है मैं ही खराब चल रहा हूँ बस
That
Beautiful,
was a
very
mic
nice.
drop line. So any last mic drop words for you before we call this session a wrap? Last few
on
words.
mental,
Yeah, yeah.
uh, let Nona.
There's always a way to bounce back. If you're strong enough, you can always lead to more greatness.
Lovely. Thank you so much, Nona. Yes, Mona.
And yep, sorry, very sorry. I think for toughness, first of all, learn to live with the discomfort, accept it that it is there, accept the negativity, right? And then work towards a positivity, define your own success, right? Do not think that you are a person who aspires to have a very average life. Understand that you were born to shine and make the right choices. It's not the person with the best cards in a game that wins. It is a person who makes the best choices with the given cards. So make good choices.
How
Great.
lovely. Thank you so much, both Mona, Nona, and it was lovely, lovely conversing with you. It is very inspiring. Your journey has been very inspiring, and you have that, that thing to pass on your energy to others. So please keep the torch lit, show us the way forward. All of us belong to the same tribe, same community, and when the tough gets going, the going will get tough when we're together. Thank you so much
Thank you.
to everybody
Thank
who's
you.
watching. Have a great day ahead. Here, signing off
Thank
from
you.
International Festival of Spiritual India
Thank you,
22
Kenna.
and handing
You
over
brought
to
out the
the
best
host.
in us. You brought out the best in us, Kenna. And with you around, there can be only sunshine and rainbows along with that sunshine. Thank you. Thank you, Nona. I've learned so much from you. And I'm going to pick up your book and become a better version of myself. Thank
Thank
you,
you. Thank you
IFSI.
so much.
Thank you, Manjari, for having us.
Over to
Thank you for
Manjari
the
and
great Thank you for the great insights and making us aware of the need for becoming mentally tough to face these tough times we are going through. Thank you, Ms. Nona Walia, Ms. Mona Verma, and Ms. Kenna Shree for being IFSI guests. We will begin our next talk, Nurturing Our Minds, Secular Teachings from the Dalai Lama, at 11:15 a.m. after a break of 15 minutes.